Hi guys, thanks for joining me today. I'm Marilyn. On a recent video, I made this hat patch and then I sewed it on to my husband's old hat. I did it by hand and it was kind of a pain. So I started watching YouTube videos and I saw that if you use a stitching pony, it's kind of like having a third hand. So I decided to make my own. I have not used this yet. This is my first time to use it. So let me adjust the camera and let's see if it works. I have just a really small piece of leather. It's 2 pieces of leather, and I want to stitch those together. It's just a little sample piece just to make sure this works. So to tighten my pony, I'm just going to tighten this wing nut. Doesn't have to be super tight, just tight enough that this holds up here. I have the leather thread already in the leather needles, and when stitching leather, you kind of go back and forth. So you're using both hands, and that's why this helps. Okay, let me go ahead and get each side started. All right, now I realize you can't really see anything from that angle, so let me turn this. Okay, so before I tie this off, really this is just a sample to make sure it was going to work well. And it did. I really like this. So much easier than when you don't have this third hand. Now, if you don't have the supplies you need to do this, then Amazon does carry these for what I think is pretty reasonable. Seems like I saw them for $25 to $30. I'll look, I'll find a couple with good reviews, and I'll link them below. But I recommend, if you can, try to make your own. You'll really appreciate it. So here's most of the parts for my wood pony. It's all the wood parts. This is just a piece of pine. It's about 4 inches wide and 3/4 inch thick. Then I have a couple of pieces. They're 15 inches long. They're about 3 inches, a little less than 3 inches wide, I think. And they are reclaimed pallet wood. So it's pallet wood that's been planed down to make it look really nice. And then another piece of pallet wood that I'm going to use for my spacers and for my angled pieces at the top. So I'm going to cut off about 3 inches. And then to get the next one to about the same length, I'm just going to put this on top of it, get it flush on this end, pull my blade down, and then I can push the bottom piece over to it gently. Don't push hard. You want to get this piece out of the way. I'm going to cut my second piece. And then I need a spacer for the bottom, and I'm just going to do about a 2-inch long piece. So now all I'm going to do is glue my 2 3-inch pieces at the top of my 15-inch pieces. Now this is a wood glue made specifically for wood. So I'm going to set that down, grab my clamps. Now before I clamp it down, I want to get this fairly flush. It's going to get cut off a little bit anyway. I do want it flush on the sides. So I'll get it clamped down and then I'll adjust it after I get a little pressure on it. Again, the top's going to get cut, so it doesn't matter if that's flush, but I do want the sides flush. Then lastly, I want to go ahead and clean off. I'm not going to stain this, so the wood glue's not going to affect my ability to stain it since I'm not staining it anyway. If you would stain yours, you don't want this wood glue to sit on this wood. All right, so I'm going to set these aside, let those dry for about 30 minutes, and then we'll trim them up. Okay, so I accidentally did not record this part, so I'm going to talk you through it. So my pieces were glued together like that. Then I set this against my fence. I have my blade set at 35 degrees, and then I just cut straight down. Now I didn't get quite all the way through on this one, so I'm going to go ahead and fix it. Okay, then just to make sure they're the exact same length, I have them flush down here on the left end. My blade's back straight. So I'll cut them at the same time so we know they're the same length. I made it home with my stitching pony, so I want to go ahead and do a little bit of sanding. Now, I'm just going to do enough to make it look presentable. Okay, that looks good to me. Now, I need to go ahead and put my spacers in here. So here's what I'm going to do. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and sand them a little bit. Then I'm going to go ahead and glue those together. Now I fully expect it's probably going to ooze out a little bit. I'm going to kind of rub it around so I get good coverage. Okay, so I'm just going to put that together like that. Would have been cute if I had the things together and look like a circle, but this is going to be functional, not pretty. Then the last thing I want to do is go ahead and glue them to one side of my stitching pony. And I want the bottom of this and the bottom of my pony to be flush. So let's go ahead and put a little glue on here. I want to go ahead and turn it up like this so that I know they're all flush on the top of the table. So here's what it looks like from the side. Well, it kind of came apart, but when I put it back down on the table, they'll all be flush again. I'm going to make it flush on the sides just with my fingers. Then once again, I'm going to take my clamp . Now, I really want to just leave this alone for about 30 minutes. I don't want to lift it up, but I'm going to tilt it just to see how badly it's stuck to my paper. All right, so I'll move it over just a little bit. Now, when this is dry, I can sand the paper off the bottom. Not a big deal. So in about 30 minutes, I'll go ahead and take the clamps off. It's been close to 30 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and take the clamp off this wood. Okay, so I think the next thing I need to do is make a hole for this bolt to go through. And this is just a wing nut. That way I can tighten it down, and as I tighten it, this will get tighter on my leather. And the hole needs to be slightly larger than the bolt so it'll go through easily. I'm going to go ahead and start with this 1/4 inch, see if that works. Now before I go through the other side, I feel like I need to go ahead and clamp these together. Now let's see if my bolt fits. Well, it fits. It's maybe a little bit tight. Okay, so here's the pine it's going to sit on. The pine is a little wider than this is. I just didn't have enough of this to act as the base, but that's okay. It'll be fine like this. Now this side looks a little better. I want this to be my top side. So what I'm going to do for now is go ahead and flip it over and then figure out where this needs to go. Now my husband has a speed square somewhere, but I don't know where it is. So I'm just going to use this piece of glass. I know it's squared off nicely. I'm going to get it flush with this side here. Then I'm just going to draw a line across. Now what this is going to do is it's going to let me know where to drill holes through from the bottom side. So I'm going to put one about right here and about right here. My hole marks aren't over quite enough, so I'm going to go ahead and move it over. Okay, so I'm pre-drilling from the bottom side. Once again, I'm going to raise it up just to protect my table. Okay, so I have these little pieces of wood. You could use whatever you want, stacks of cardboard. It really doesn't matter. But what I want to do is have this on its side. I can see the holes from the bottom. The thickness of those shims is just about perfect. So I'm going to use the holes I already pre-drilled and go ahead and drill up into my vertical pieces. Now the important thing for me is they have a flat head. If I did a countersink on the bottom, I might not need it so flat, but I don't know where my husband's countersink is. So I'm going to go ahead and get this started. Now this wood's pretty soft, so I did my own countersink. I buried it a little too much, but that's okay. That's better than it sticking out and rubbing on whatever surface it stands on. Now with one already in, that's going to make this one go a lot easier. Okay, I didn't bury that one so far. Now, this is an impact driver, so it has a lot of power and you can accidentally let it get away from you very easily. And that's what I did on the first one. It's going to work fine, but you probably don't want to sink it in halfway through the wood. So here's what's left to do on my stitching pony. I need to add some leather pieces in between here, and I need to add on my hinge. Now the only money I spent on this, because everything else was things we had laying around the house, was for this little utility hinge. They have these in a lot of different sizes, but this is the one that fit the width of my wood. This was $3.18 at Home Depot. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and set this tight up against my wood. Let's see, does it need to go a certain way? No, the other way was better. And it has these little short screws that came with it. The last thing I need to do is cover these pieces with leather so that when you put your leather down between here, or whatever you're holding in between here, It keeps it from getting scratched up or anything like that. You just want some cushion up there. So that can lay all the way down. And I'll go ahead and do that so I can add leather to these ends. And then I want a piece long enough I can go up and then down over this, just to make it look nice right here. But I'm going to go ahead and go all the way back to the vertical piece. Then it'll go that way and then flipped over the back, and I'll trim it later. So I'm going to try using this leather cement. I think you could use a lot of different things. So I'm just going to smear it on the front side or the top side of this piece right here. And I'll do the exact same thing right here. Okay, so now I want to go ahead and bring these two together. And I'm just going to clamp those together really tightly so that leather cement can dry. All right, so the instructions say to put pressure against it till the cement dries. It doesn't say how long it'll take. So I guess I'll come back and check this in about 30 minutes. I'm going to fast forward through most of the gluing and clamping because I yammered on about pretty much nothing. Really what you're going to do is figure out a way to get pressure against the leather and the glue while the glue is drying. Thanks so much for joining me and sticking it out till the end. Until my next video. Bye-bye.